Welcome in, everybody, to a little bit of a bonus episode of the Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody is having a great day. And I hope you are not a Michigan fan. We are reacting in real time to the shocking news that the number one quarterback in America, Bryce Underwood, has officially flipped from LSU to Michigan. He had been committed to LSU since back in January. Now, a week before National Signing Day, he is now headed to play for Michigan, the home state school. So we've talked about this on the Aaron Torres pod here quite a bit over the last couple weeks. We've talked about the possibilities, but it has actually happened. And I'll be transparent. This is an immediate reaction show. I was not expecting it. For people listening on podcast, by the way, we did a full Aaron Torres pod about 3 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday. I was done for the week. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do some reaction to Bryce Underwood. We are going to put it on the front end of the Aaron Torres pod from earlier in the day, where we talked about Julian Lewis. We talked college football. We talked all the craziness with the week 13 slate. We did a little college basketball as well. But this is shocking news. This is big news. And so we had to do a bonus emergency segment. And I'll be transparent. There are no notes. There is no preparation. There is nothing on the note cards here. It was just we had to react in real time to this shocking news that Bryce Underwood, the number one quarterback in America, is no longer headed to LSU and instead is headed to Michigan. What does it mean for Michigan? What does it mean for LSU? Let's go ahead and dive in. And so, okay, I'm just going to start from the beginning, and we're just going to do the 360 spin around the world, okay? Bryce Underwood, number one high school football player in America. You know that. Quarterback from Belleville, Michigan, and it was in January of this year. It was in January of 2024, almost a year ago now. He commits to LSU. And it was, not much was thought of it at the time. Michigan's on course to win a national championship. I think they had maybe officially just won it a week or two before, but you kind of knew Harbaugh was going to the NFL. And so he ultimately decides to go to LSU. And really, I think there were a couple things that stood out at the time. LSU, of course, is coming. Michigan's going to come off a national championship. Okay. He's from Michigan, but LSU is coming off a season in which Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman Trophy, in which Jaden Daniels is incredible. Jaden Daniels sets all sorts of records. But here's the other thing. In January of this year, Michigan really didn't play the NIL game the way that most of college football plays the NIL game. Their stance on NIL was pretty straightforward. We have money. We're willing to spend it. We just don't spend it on guys that have never played for us before. We're not in the business of buying high school recruits, but instead, we're going to focus on the guys in the program, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, whatever. Why do I bring it up? It's easy to get on your high horse about NIL, and this is how we do it, and we don't pay recruits, blah, 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 until you have a season like Michigan has had this year. And we don't need to go through it. We don't need to talk about every single thing that's going on at Michigan, but it was so obvious that Michigan, they're actually not a terrible team across the board. They got skill position talent. The O-line's still okay. The defense is still good. Look what they did to Indiana a few weeks ago. Indiana came in scoring 40-plus points a game. They hold them to 20, but the quarterback play has been so bad, and there was really no answer going forward. Jack Tuttle has to medically retire. Alex Orji isn't a long-term player at he isn't an answer at the quarterback position. Unfortunately, they were hoping he would be. And transparently, Davis Warren is a former walk-on that simply isn't getting the job done. And so they're pretty good everywhere else, but the quarterback is not the answer. And what I think that I have noticed is that in college football now, the stakes are so high and everything happens so quick, okay? And so these coaches now are seeing scenarios where it's like, I can't screw around. I can't wait. I have to move quick because I can't go into next year, even if it's only year 2 for Sharon Moore. I can't go into next year without an answer at quarterback. I don't care if it's through the transfer portal. I don't care if it's through NIL. I don't care if it's through the high school ranks, whatever. But we've seen this a few times now. Nebraska, at this time last year, they're coming off a 5-7 season. Now they're 5-5 now. We'll see how much it mattered, but they needed a quarterback. Matt Rule could not go into year 2 without an answer at quarterback. He does the famous press conference where they're asking him about transfers. He says, listen, You understand a transfer quarterback is going to cost $1 million. And I think that was kind of the Nebraska hint of, hey, we got to start, raising the money that we need. He gets Dylan Raiola. I still go back to a few years ago. Do you remember a few years ago when Steve Sarkisian, 5-7 in year one, he can't go into year two with Hudson Card, quarterback, or whoever else they had. So Quinn Ewers enters the portal. He gets Quinn Ewers. The second Quinn Ewers entered the portal, I said, it's over. That's who he's going to. Quinn Ewers is going to Texas. They need an answer. They can't go into year two. So I bring it up because Michigan needed an answer. And what became obvious over the past probably 5 or 6 weeks is that they were finally willing to play the NIL game. They were finally willing to play the NIL game. They were finally willing to commit the resources necessary to get this kid to talk, or to get this kid to re-engage. And transparently, like, on the one hand, I'm surprised. On the other hand, I'm not. Listen, this kid's a Michigan kid. I think if this was a pre-NIL era, he probably maybe would have committed to Michigan out of high school. But LSU obviously was offering something, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not against the rules. It's not against the law. It's not against anything. But my hunch is LSU came in with a sweet NIL package, and he just said, listen, I have to reconsider. Well, Michigan now is like, listen, we'll play the NIL game. What do you want? What are they paying you? We'll be able to match it. We're happy. What do you need to do? What do you need from us? All that good stuff. And then we saw the second report a few weeks ago where they now upped their offer to closer to $10 million over 4 years, which is obviously about $2 million a year. And so we can say, do we like this? Do we not like this? College football, is this bad? Is this whatever? But this is the world of college football. We've talked about it for years. There's so much money flowing into this sport. It's hard for me to complain about players getting any of it. And yes, I know this isn't the way anyone intended NIL, but we all knew this was going to be how NIL was. I go back to 5-6 years ago. I remember doing a sit down with a very prominent media member. I won't mention his name because I love the guy to death. Okay. But he said this was the pre-NIL era, and he just kept saying, just pay players, just pay players, just pay players. Who cares? Whatever, figure it out. And I'm like, you understand once we open those floodgates, it's going to get crazy. And he's like, how crazy could it get? I'm like, you mean to tell me if Texas or Texas A&M or whomever, if there's a quarterback out there or a player out there that they think can change their program, that they're not going to do it? Because they obviously would. And so this is where we are with NIL. Michigan put together the resources, they pooled the resources, and now they officially have their quarterback because, of course, Bryce Underwood flipped just moments ago. By the way, it's a big deal when Adam Schefter broke the story, okay? With respect to all the great college football reporters, when Adam Schefter is involved, this is getting done at the highest levels, highest boosters. I know Michigan, Adam Schefter is a Michigan alum, but Bryce Underwood, I'm sure, is working with one of the bigger agencies in all of football, and Michigan gets their guy. And so what does this mean for Michigan, okay? So let's talk about it from the Michigan perspective, because to me, this is freaking huge, okay? Listen, I'm saying it, and maybe it's unpopular, and I see the comment section is humming. We'll get to some of your comments here in just a minute. But to me, when I look at this, when I look at what this means for Michigan, it changes everything with Sharon Moore. Listen, I'll be honest, and maybe y'all are going to get mad at me. I don't think Sharon Moore has been terrible. Like, when I turn Michigan on every Saturday, I don't see a terrible football team. I see a football team with a terrible quarterback situation. And so to me, you look at, yes, things need to improve. Yes, it can't just be a singular one player that changes the entire program. But I do think in many ways it does change the entire program. Because first of all, you have your quarterback of the future, okay? You have the guy that you believe in can elevate your program, and you have a guy that's going to step in day one, minute one, like Dylan Raiola, and I think he's going to be a starter this coming year, okay? But you have your guy. I don't think Michigan has been terrible. I mean, you just look at some of the stats, okay? Let's look at Michigan stats really quick on the season. I'm doing this all off the top of my head, so forgive me here, but you look at Michigan, listen, top 40 defense, and this is with no offense, okay? Top 40 defense. And, a defense that's given up about 22, 23 points per game. The problem is they can't move the football. The problem is they are currently ranked, as we speak, 129th in total offense. And so to me, it's hard to gauge or evaluate how good or not good Michigan is because they don't have a quarterback. So now you have the quarterback. I think what's especially interesting, I don't think this is the last big name that Michigan signs in this cycle that is part of this recruiting class, thanks to Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood is done. He's in the bag. He's going to commit and sign in early December. And I don't think they make this move unless they're 100% positive, unless this is going to happen. And again, when it started to leak 3-4 weeks ago, it's funny. Let me even backtrack. I had so many people reach out to me and just say, Torres, is this true? Torres, what do you think? Torres, do you believe it'll happen? And what I kept saying consistently was this, is I said, if there was 0% chance it would happen, we wouldn't have these rumors out there. Okay. If there was 0% chance it would happen, we wouldn't be taught, like the reports wouldn't be out there. So the fact that they were out there, the fact that they didn't go away, I think the fact, by the way, that the fact that he never really publicly denied it. I mean, he put up Instagram posts, but he didn't really actually deny it. I think to me, it always spoke like this had the possibility of happening. Now, like I was saying, and I think this is important, I don't think he's going to be the last recruit. As a matter of fact, I just logged into Twitter, and Sean McGee, a guy who I follow, he follows me. He is Michigan's senior associate AD and general manager, just tweeted out a tweet that says dominoes. And what that means to me is that, oh, by the way, it means that there are more guys coming. And when I thought this could actually happen, I'll tell you when I thought it could actually happen, okay? About 2.5 weeks ago, it was for the Oregon game. So I forget if that was 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever. But that was when this first started, and we really thought, okay, there is a possibility that this could happen, but Bryce Underwood didn't show up. So what does that mean? Well, you know who did show up? Derek Meadows, a 5-star wide receiver who is also committed to LSU. And so this kid's from Vegas, okay? He's not a Michigan kid like Bryce Underwood. But to me, that was like the light bulb moment where I was just like, well, wait a second now. Wait a second. I was like, well, wait a second. I said, so this kid who has no previous relationship with Michigan, who has never visited the campus as far as I know, he's deciding to take a visit the week that Bryce Underwood is reportedly interested in flipping his commitment. That to me was like, oh, that's something. And now you got to start to wonder if a kid like Derek Meadows is going to be in play. You got to start to wonder if other players across the country that maybe weren't considering Michigan now at least have to think about it. The recruiting class that Brian Kelly, put together. And we're going to talk about the LSU perspective here in just a minute. But the recruiting class that LSU put together, you got to start to wonder if that thing's in question, because so many of those kids committed to play with Bryce Underwood at LSU. He's not going. And again, is it Derek Meadows? Are there other guys? And to me, we talked about it. It's funny. If you're listening on podcasts, you're going to listen to the Julian Lewis segment in a minute that I did earlier in the day. But I bring it up because we talked about Julian Lewis. He commits to Colorado. Now he becomes Colorado's best recruiter. Well, guess what? Now Sherrone Moore has his best recruiter in Bryce Underwood. And so again, who could possibly come? I don't know. But when your general manager just tweets out dominoes, you know things are going well. So Bryce Underwood is officially committed to Michigan. It is a stunner. I don't know what else there is to add. Now, what I want to do, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we come back, what I want to do is I want to talk about the LSU perspective, because this is bad for LSU. And I think, listen, I'm not saying it's the end for Brian Kelly, because that contract is way too big. Scott Woodward is attached to him. But this speaks to the fact that, it ain't pretty on the bayou right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, we're going to talk about the LSU perspective of this. We'll take some of your questions. The chat is humming, man. I cannot believe this news dropped here on a Thursday afternoon. Quick break. Be right back. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So wasn't planning on doing a completely separate episode from the one we did at 3 o'clock Eastern today, talking Julian Lewis, a little bit of the Maui Invitational, college basketball, whatever. But what are we going to do? What are we not going to talk about? The biggest story in all of college sports right now, as Bryce Underwood, the number one high school player in America, just moments ago officially flipped from LSU to Michigan. And so we started the conversation. We talked about what it means for Michigan, how it all came together, all that good stuff, okay? But what I want to do right now, listen, we got to do it. We got to talk about what it means from the LSU perspective, what it means for the Tigers. And I got to be transparent. We got to talk about what it means for Brian Kelly and his future. Because at the end of the day, LSU ain't very good on the field right now. And I think a lot of his future was tied to, well, at least you got the number one recruit in America coming in next year. Yeah, that ain't going to happen now. And so now there are some real big picture questions for Brian Kelly. First of all, listen, let me say this. Before we even get to the Bryce Underwood stuff, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I think we've been a little bit ahead of maybe just how bad things are at LSU on this channel, maybe more so than some other national people. And I'm not here to criticize other people, content creators, podcasters, YouTubers, whatever, okay? But I remember after the Alabama game 2 weeks ago, I said, like, what is LSU right now? LSU, it was their third loss. It basically eliminated them from the college football playoff. Now, in theory, they still technically had the ability to make the SEC championship. So I guess maybe there was a pot, whatever. But they lost to Alabama 42-13. Okay. They didn't find the end zone until the final minute of the game. And so I said at the time, I said, what is this program? You get destroyed by Alabama. You get destroyed by Texas A&M. You lose to a bad USC team. And oh, by the way, it's worth noting, if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt against South Carolina, you lose that game too. And you barely, you won by the skin of your teeth against Ole Miss. And so I said that Torres, it's Alabama, stuff happens. Well, I think the game against Florida last week in the Swamp, it really showed this LSU program is going in the wrong direction. And this LSU program, there's nothing special about it. I say it all the time. LSU, you could argue right now in the NFL, when I was a kid, all the freaks, all the crazy players that had all that NFL success came from Miami. In the Miami days, it was Andre Johnson, it was Jeremy Shockey, it was Jonathan Vilma, it was Ed Reed, it was Vince Wilfork, whatever. Now, this generation, it's LSU. And even when LSU's had peaks and valleys, think about all the NFL players that have come through that place, okay? Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, on and on. And I've been saying, like, there's nothing special about LSU. They don't look good. They don't look athletic. They don't even look like they belong on the same field as Alabama. They didn't look like they belong on the same field as Florida. And so the whole saving grace for Brian Kelly was, we may stink this year, but hey, we got the number one recruit in America coming in. And so to me, this is a major inflection point for the entire Brian Kelly era at LSU and what the future holds for him. Now, to be clear, because I've already gotten text messages from people in the industry, he ain't getting fired. Okay, I got something. Oh, Brian Kelly, he's done. Brian Kelly ain't done. Back-to-back 10-win seasons to start his career at LSU. But what I can say, the clock is officially ticking because now you don't have anything to sell for the future and you stink. I remember a year ago in the lead up to signing day, there was a lot of talk about the possibility of could DJ Lagway flip from Florida. Florida lost a ton of guys out of their class. Elko gets the A&M job. Lagway has relationships with Lincoln Riley. And it was like, could he flip to USC? Could he flip to Texas A&M? And I remember saying at the time, I was like, if Lagway is lost, if Lagway does not sign with Florida, there's no reason to bring back Billy Napier because he's the whole future of the program. And so with Brian Kelly, it's not quite as dire, but the clock is certainly ticking at LSU because you look at LSU right now, they're not good on the field. They're not good on the field. And Bryce Underwood was the future. Listen, Garrett Nussmeier, he's doing his best, whatever. He's not good. I'm sorry. It's the truth. I see him on NFL draft boards. No disrespect. I'll just say it. I don't care. Put that guy on CFL draft boards because he stinks, okay? And I think the reason he was trying to leave was because he knew Bryce Underwood was coming in to take his job. And so now, what is the future of this program? Because you had Bryce Underwood. He's gone. I think the recruiting class is going to largely fall apart. But here's my big question. What is this program right now? We just mentioned it with Michigan. You couldn't run it back with the current quarterback situation. I don't think Michigan can run, or I don't think LSU can run it back with Garrett Nussmeier. He's not good enough. I mean, you watched him on the field with DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway is a true freshman who's figuring it out on the fly coming off injury, and it wasn't even comparable. DJ Lagway was so much better, and every player and every coach in America would take DJ Lagway right now over Garrett Nussmeier, okay? And so Garrett Nussmeier isn't the answer. You don't have enough talent around him. I mean, you think about some of those players at LSU. Kyron Lacey's draft eligible. He's going to be gone. Mason Taylor's draft eligible. He's going to be gone. Braden Swinson's draft eligible on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to be gone. And so I don't see where the upside is and where the excitement is for LSU. And this was supposed to be it. And now with Bryce Underwood gone, I'm telling you, I think that recruiting class, there is a very distinct possibility that it could be in shambles here in the coming days. I'm just looking right now at 24/7 team rankings. LSU was a top 4 class prior to the Bryce Underwood decommitment. Well, DJ Pickett, the number 1 player, still ranked in that class. He took a visit to, I want to say, Florida this past week. He's taken visits to Miami. He's taken other visits, okay? Derek Meadows, we just mentioned him, is a player that just took a visit to Michigan in recent weeks. And so a lot of these players that are committed now, you have to think they're going to rethink their commitments. So if I'm Brian Kelly, again, Brian Kelly isn't getting fired, okay? He's owed too much money. And I think as importantly, he is a guy that like Scott Woodward, the AD, is tied to Brian Kelly. That was his big hire. He fired Coach O, and that was his push all the chips in the middle and go get the Notre Dame head coach. So he's going to give Brian Kelly the benefit of the doubt. He's going to give Brian Kelly everything and every opportunity to prove he's the guy. But what reason is there to think that things are going to get better in this program? Again, the most important player in the class is gone. Garrett Nussmeier isn't the answer. Here's the crazy part, too, about LSU. I don't think a lot of people have considered. Keep in mind that, think about this. If you actually look at LSU's schedule, this was kind of the year that LSU really was supposed to and should have made their move. LSU, let's think about this schedule. Yes, they open with USC. We found out that USC isn't good, okay? Keep in mind, they don't have Texas on the schedule. They don't have Georgia on the schedule. They don't have Tennessee on the schedule. They do have Alabama at home and Ole Miss at home, okay? And so of the 6 legitimate SEC contenders, you had to go face one of them on the road. That was Texas A&M, and you got destroyed, okay? And so I just bring it up because if this was the easy schedule, and I know next year the schedules just flip, instead of, they won't have Texas, they won't have Tennessee, they won't have whatever. But this was the year. No Tennessee, no Texas, no Georgia, Alabama at home, Ole Miss at home. USC, it turns out, stinks. and you're going to go, you're 6-4 right now. You might go 8-4. There's nothing redeeming about this 8-4 season. What's the great win on the schedule? Ole Miss in overtime. Congratulations. Should have lost that game. You were never in control. USC, you lose. Alabama, you lose. South Carolina, I guess, is a decent loss. Whatever. The only point I'm trying to make is this is bad. I cannot believe it either. I see some comments in the comment section. I think Mike Bass is right. I mentioned some of the names that are in this recruiting class. DJ Pickett, number one cornerback one of the top cornerbacks in America, a 5-star, chose LSU over Miami and Oregon, was at Florida this weekend. Billy Napier's got some momentum now with DJ Lagway. Mike Bass says, I think he's flipping to, I think DJ Pickett is flipping to Florida. He also mentioned, by the way, Cade Phillips. Cade Phillips is a 5-star safety, 5-star cornerback, excuse me. He's from Texas. Is he going to flip to Texas as well? So I just bring it up because it is an absolute colossal train wreck, and it is so bad for LSU. And again, Brian Kelly is not getting fired, okay? Brian Kelly has, $80 million owed on his contract, and the AD's future is tied to Brian Kelly working. So he's going to have every benefit, every advantage. I just don't see the positivity for this program, because I was telling a buddy of mine who actually hosts an LSU podcast, Carter Bryant, does a great job. I was talking to him and I said, the entire program, I feel like what we're selling to this entire program is the idea that you had a good 2024 class and you had a good 2025 class. Well, now the 2025 class is in shambles, but even if it was good, you're really building towards like 26. Anyway, point I'm trying to make, this is a disaster, and it's only going to get worse. Want to get to some of your questions and comments, and then we will get out of here. Drop them in the comment section. This is insanity. Want to get to some of these questions. First of all, Mark says, put some respect on that name. Go Blue. Listen, let's give Sharon Moore some credit, okay? Let's give Sharon Moore some credit. Listen, this is big boy stuff. This is put on your pants and big boy pants and go to work. And I do think Sharon Moore deserves some credit here. Again, we mentioned it. You can't go into next year with the situation that you have, but it doesn't change the fact that you had to get it done. And so for Sharon Moore, I don't know where the money came from. It's not my business. We know Dave Portnoy was very vocal about, willing to help in the NIL game, but credit to Michigan for getting this done, man. Because listen, there's two sides to every story. There's the LSU side, which is fascinating, but the other thing is that you still have to get it done if you're Michigan. And so for Michigan to rally the boosters, for Michigan to get it done, you want to give them a ton of credit. Drop your questions, drop your thoughts. Let's see here. Mark also says, you knew Bryce was coming to A2 when E-Dot flipped to Michigan. So E-Dot is his high school teammate. For people who don't follow the recruiting stuff religiously, let's see here, because there's been a lot of recruiting news at Michigan, but Elijah Dotson is a safety who was committed to, I want to say Pitt. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but was committed to Pitt. He ends up flipping to Michigan a few days ago, excuse me. And so once that got done, you knew that Bryce Underwood was on the table. But listen, to me, what stands out is the idea that, again, is that once the news broke, listen, I've been doing this a long time. I'm older than I look. I got more grays on the side of my hair than you know. But I bring it up because when stuff leaks, something like this doesn't leak if there's 0% chance that it's happening, okay? You just think of all the examples, right? I can't think of a good one off the top of my head. But the point I'm trying to make is it doesn't leak if stuff isn't happening. And to Michigan's credit, they really did kind of round out this class outside of Bryce Underwood really well. Shamari Earls, a 5-star cornerback who was committed to Georgia, flips to Michigan. Elijah Dotson, as Mark said, flipped to Michigan. So this is unbelievable. I cannot believe it. We'll get to a couple questions before we get out of here. Dominoes will fall in place now. Listen, Michigan's GM just tweeted Dominoes. Stuff is happening. More stuff is happening. I would expect Derek Meadows the wide receiver originally from Vegas, to commit. And I think that's coming soon. Let's see here. This is an LSU fan, obviously. One recruit don't define our program. Listen, I agree, but this was an important recruit, though. Okay, you can say that one recruit doesn't define the LSU program, but what I would say is that it doesn't define the program. But you needed Bryce Underwood for two reasons. You needed Bryce Underwood because he's a better option at quarterback than whoever you had next year. Garrett Nussmeier isn't the answer, okay? But you needed it so that there could be some positive momentum in this recruiting class and with this program. Think about LSU right now. They have Vandy and they have Oklahoma at home. I know Vandy's having a good season. I'm not trying to disrespect Vandy, but those final two games, that's not going to do anything to excite the fan base, to get them going. You're going to go to a second-tier bowl game when a minimum of 4, probably 5 SEC teams are going to be going to the playoff, including some of your biggest rivals. Alabama's probably going to be there. Ole Miss is probably going to be there. Texas A&M might be there. So all these programs around you have momentum, and now you don't. And so if you're a fan, if you're a booster, if you're somebody who supports this program, what do you have to get excited about? Cool, Garrett Nussmeier for another year? Listen, I cover this stuff for a living. I'm not going to be watching LSU if Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback, and I feel like this is a bash Garrett Nussmeier session. He's just not good enough. And so I just, listen, I know one recruit doesn't define the program, but this was kind of an important one. Let's keep it going here. Richard, keeping it real. He says, LSU fan here, can't really blame Bryce. We have looked like clowns this season. Listen, I don't think it's the only factor, but getting your butt kicked by Alabama, getting your butt kicked by Texas A&M certainly doesn't help. If you're Bryce Underwood, yeah, you got to think about your future. And I know that Michigan hasn't looked very good, but again, I think Michigan's been fine. Michigan's been fine. They just don't have a quarterback. By the way, they probably lost to the two best teams in the country in Oregon and Texas. USC they beat. Who else? They lost to Illinois because they don't have a quarterback. They struggle with whoever because they don't have a quarterback. Like, they're not that far off. And doesn't mean that Bryce Underwood's going to save the program and that he's going to lead them to another natty, but he's better than whatever they had. It's the home state school. He's obviously going to get paid quite a bit of money. I think you got to be excited if you're a Michigan fan. Big Groove said what I just said. 4-star and top 50 wide receiver Derek Meadows, you're next. Plus, you already have Michigan ties. We talked about that. Aggie Man is just laughing. We will see if Michigan can develop a quarterback. I mean, what was Bryce? What was JJ McCarthy? Like, by the way, JJ McCarthy, everyone tells me how bad JJ McCarthy was at Michigan. It is kind of crazy. They had no quarterback before him. For 10 years, they couldn't beat Ohio State because they didn't have a quarterback. Then he comes in, they go 3-0. He starts 2 of those games, wins a national championship, 3 straight Big Ten titles. Then he leaves, they immediately stink again. So JJ McCarthy, I think that his time at Michigan will be looked back a little bit more fondly as time goes on. But man, oh man, what an absolute stunner here. Any more questions before we get out of here? I appreciate the live chat. A lot of live viewers today. We had a big crowd for the Julian Lewis stuff, and now another very big crowd for Michigan flipping Bryce Underwood. I cannot believe it. We talked about this. I'll tell you what, I appreciate Michigan doing it today and not tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm probably going to have gone live. Tuesday I'm traveling for Thanksgiving. So yeah, that's really it. I'll tell you what, guys, you want to do everybody a favor. First of all, do me a favor. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Appreciate everybody's support here. You want to do me a favor? We do all of our extended previews on the college football betting YouTube page, okay? That is separate from this page right here. And if you want to be a sport, if you want to be a trooper, go ahead and just give me a quick subscribe there. Just subscribe to that page if you want to just do Torres a solid. We just started this page a few months back. It's brand new. We don't do a lot of extended recaps and previews on this show just because this channel, people aren't into the previews, but we do 6, 7, 8 minutes on all the big games, Ohio State, Indiana, whatever, fill in the blank, whoever the games are this weekend, Alabama, Ole Miss, etc. do me a favor. You want to do your boy Torres a solid, just subscribe to that YouTube page. I really, really would appreciate everybody doing that because man, oh man, what a day. By the way, I'm seeing that apparently, let's see here. There's a few other comments in the comment section. The main thing is just go ahead, subscribe to the other YouTube channel. By the way, if you're not subscribed here, make sure to do so. Also, the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, please make sure to do that. And I think that's it. You guys got anything else? Any other comments? Any other questions? Live chat is humming. We appreciate everybody's support. I'll be honest. I see people saying that LSU will go after the Tulane quarterback. I have not personally heard that. I am not saying it can't happen, but I'll tell you this, LSU needs an answer at quarterback, and they need it very quickly, okay? Because they are not in a good place right now. Obviously, the Tulane quarterback is Darian Mensah. He's just a true freshman. And the one thing I will say, as somebody who has done this for a long time, is none of this is ever totally a surprise. And so because of it, at some point, they probably have started to formulate a backup plan. So whether it's somebody out of the portal, whether it's another high school, they're going to get somebody. But again, it can't be Garrett Nussmeier. All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get out of here. Go watch some Thursday Night Football. Do me a favor. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast page. If you want to do your boy Torres a solid, I dropped the college football betting YouTube handle in the live chat. That would be very much appreciated. Just subscribe over there. We do our long form previews on that channel. We try not to do them here. But all right, I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody's support. We'll be back. Be back on Sunday. Maybe more reaction to this on Sunday, but what a crazy night.